Okay, let's get on with our program. We have 2 more speakers.
Let's do 4 quick door prizes.
Oh, we're going to do 4 quick door prizes. Oh, fun. Okay. All right.
Wait till I get them out there.
Okay. What do you? Okay.
Doesn't matter, just
All right. 830295, the little blue ticket. 830295. Do we have a winner? 830295. 830295. I'll just set them.
for just a minute.
Going once more, or we'll wait and see if someone comes in. That person wins a book, and these are for sale in our gift shop. Stories from the '64 Alaska earthquake. It's a compilation of different people's stories. Really interesting.
Okay, the next number is 830307. 830307. All right, Willie! Woo! Yay! All right.
You want to check it?
It's right.
And some gift cards for you.
Well, hallelujah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And the next one is, oops. Okay. 830189. Yay, in the back. Woo! In the pink. Okay. And the last one is 830233. Yay! Okay. And did we have someone claim that first one?
This last person gets 2 coupons to the Arctic Roadrunner, and they're valued at $18.40. The previous person got some Alaska cards and Alaska magnet, and Willie got a towel and some Alaska gift cards. Now we're going to repeat the number of the first person that won the book. So please check your numbers now that everyone's back.
Okay, and don't forget to turn in your ticket for the quilt, and the quilt is over here. So we're going to be giving that away. It's valued at $150, and when you purchased your ticket and filled out your name and email, you're entered. So make sure it goes into the basket. Anything else, Mary? Okay. All right.
One more time.
Which ticket, the first one? Okay, I'm going to repeat that first number, 830295. 830295 is not responding. Okay. We'll take one more.
For that book.
830196. 196, yay! All right. Congratulations. Oh, so sorry. So sorry. Okay, 830196. 196. Over here? Yeah, oh, Jana. Jana Hyanga. Oh, she's out here? Oh, that's great. Okay. She'll be surprised when she comes back. Great things happen when you get up and move. Okay, let's get on with our program. Our third speaker is Rick Benjamin. Rick Benjamin's grandparents came to Alaska as missionaries in 1946, and Rick was born and raised in Anchorage. He graduated from Service High in 1974 and earned a bachelor's degree from Northwest College in Washington State in 1978. He married his wife, Dolores, who works at Providence as a surgery nurse, coder, medical coder. Bless her. I love her. Okay. She's a hero. They adopted David, born in 1990, and Michael, born in 1993. Tucker Benjamin, the couple's first grandson, was born in 2011. Wow. Rick's parents founded in 1959 the Abbott Loop Community Church here in Anchorage. Rick was employed from 1978 to 2002 at that church. He became an ordained pastor in 1980. He served as senior pastor for 19 years. Wow, thank you. He earned a master's degree in social science and leadership studies from Azusa Pacific University. Did I slaughter that? Okay, all right, in California in 2001. Over the years, Rick has been involved with many community organizations. He was a member of the Anchorage Evangelical Pastors Fellowship since 1984, excuse me. He served on the Interfaith Council of Anchorage for 9 years and the Anchorage Board of Ethics for 6 years. He has been a Rotarian since 1987 and a member of the Anchorage East Rotary since 2002. In 2009, Rick became the Director of Organizational and Spiritual Wellness for Hope Community Resources. Hope has been a secular nonprofit in Alaska since 1968, currently serving over 1,200 individuals with developmental disabilities statewide. Please welcome Rick Benjamin.
Thank you for the gracious invitation to be part of this really nice event. My wife and I, we're delighted to be here, aren't we? My life in Alaska in 15 minutes or less. That is my name, Rick Benjamin. I have 2 first names. It really is my name. I answer to either one. Should say that maybe it should read my life in Anchorage. I confess I'm what you call an urban Alaskan. Almost my entire story is about living in this city. I've never even been hunting, not even one time in my life. Yes, my grandparents came in 1946. Like a lot of Alaskans, the story begins in Seattle, where they became Christians and were sent as missionaries to Alaska in the years right after the war, the boom years back then. And that's my grandmother, the lower left, Zelma. My grandpa, lower right, Huey Rounds. My Uncle Dave in the middle. Behind is my Uncle Harold and my mother, Carol. And they had altogether 6 kids. That was their missionary support card when they came to Alaska as missionaries. My grandpa built this church in North Mountain View. It's still there. I took this picture on Monday. Now it's called Bethel Chapel. Back then it was called Mountain View Chapel. They built the lighthouse on the front. It still says lighthouse on the north. On the corner of Price and Peterkin has beautiful peeled spruce logs inside, polished. That's a special place for us and our family. This was a newspaper called the 49th Star, and there's a picture of my grandpa on the front. It says Good Samaritan, and he was. They started the first mission home in downtown Anchorage. It was called the Anchorage Mission Home, about where Club Paris is now on 5th Avenue. They ran it for about 15 years. That's hard work. My grandpa had a big heart, and I'm proud of him for that. He would talk to anybody. He loved everybody. He would go out at night and find people that were freezing sometimes, bring them into the mission home, homeless people, alcoholics. He was good to minorities. He was great to people, high and low, it didn't matter. He was awesome. He was a good Samaritan that way. He had that big heart. He played the banjo. He wasn't very good, but he was enthusiastic. He had a radio show. So in that chapel over there in Mountain View, he built kind of a studio with turntables and black vinyl records, gospel music he'd play. And they played that show for a couple years after he passed away, even on KBYR in Anchorage. He passed away in 1971. There's my grandma, Zelma Rounds. She outlived him by a long time and passed away on Mother's Day in 1993. Awesome person, always full of joy, even though her life was hard. Loved children, had a lot of fun. She was spunky. She had to be. Miss her too. 1950, my father came to Anchorage, young single man. He knew my grandparents before, and so he came to help them in the church and the mission. And he went to work at First National Bank. That's over on the right-hand side of the picture, you know, after Ekman's Furniture and the 4th Avenue Theater. My dad lived in the bank, actually, as a single man for a couple years. He used to tell me he had the bank vault combination memorized. He knew Mr. Cuddy and all the great people that worked in the bank back in those years. He worked for 12 years for First National. He became a assistant cashier. I still have his desk nameplate on my desk where I work today. He met my mother, who had grown up in the meantime, so they got married, thank God, on 1952, November 2nd. Look at how skinny he is and how excited they are. My mother was happy because he was a banker, not a pastor. But that didn't last for long. That's the original Providence Hospital. I was born there in 1956. It was located down at the end of the park strip, kind of, on L Street. In June, I was born there. And they tore it down. Too bad. There's our family. That's me with the bow tie. My dad and mom. Yeah, she wore those cat eye glasses. My sister Sue, she's about 2.5 years younger. My only sibling. I love her. She's a great friend. So in 1959, my dad did start a church called Abbott Loop Community Chapel with 21 people. Dick Strutz was there, and Lindy, and Rhonda, and Colleen, I think. We were all there together. And it was a Quonset. Like a lot of Alaskan stories, we used those military surplus buildings. I lived in another one on the same property. We had a Quonset that was attached to a trailer. Very Alaskan story. Lots of lean-tos and add-ons. Just kept happening that way. It made a cute little church chapel, I thought. And we kept it for a long time. Very humble beginnings. That's an actual color photograph of the church. It's the part that has the white cross on the top. And there's sure enough, a lean-to, an add-on as we kept on growing. And another military surplus building that we used. I think that's our car, that two-tone Ford there. Growing up out there, we moved out there then in actually 58 or 59. All dirt roads. We lived on the corner of Abbott and Lake Otis. It was great growing up in Anchorage in those days. It was out in the woods, building tree houses, having fights with rocks and fireweed and all that stuff. You know, the dogs didn't have to be on a leash. They went all over the place all the time. We had a burn barrel in front of our house. Remember, every night out there throwing the garbage in, you know. It was great. It was a fun life growing up. 6 years, Abbe Loop Elementary School. 2 years, Wendler Junior High. Graduated from Service High, one of the first ones back in 1974. I live across the road from Service High on a street called Strutz Avenue. I didn't get very far. I remember this day very well. I was little. The story is we were in that building that day. That's JCPenney's. And we were shopping, I remember, probably for Easter clothes. It was Good Friday. And people died in that building that day. But we were driving home in the family car. They now call it the old Seward Highway. Out kind of close to Dowling and Seward Highway. And it just started to happen. And my father thought the wheels were coming off the car. And he parked the car in the middle of the road, and it just kept happening. You know, it was almost 4 minutes. That thing just would not quit. As a kid, I remember thinking, people are dying right now. I knew it. It was surreal. There was like waves going through the ground. Your brain couldn't sort of take it in. It didn't seem right, you know. And yeah, the trees were back and forth and almost seemed to touch the ground. And I remember my Aunt Kathy was in the car. She was a teenager then. She was screaming. My dad said, "Stop, be quiet. This is terrible," you know. And she did. And we just kind of waited till it was over. We drove home. I remember we had to lay down some planks to cross some crevasses that were splitting the road to get home that day. We camped out for several days like a lot of Alaskans did with no facilities, no utilities, you know. We made it, and then we heard about what happened in Valdez and all the other places. It was awful, but we overcame it. Alaskans, you know, we help each other. We survive, we get along, we make it work, and we did. Boy, every time an earthquake happens, the feelings come back. Right there. I went to that Hokie Alaska Experience Theater where they shake the chairs, you know. The feelings came back. I was right there. And when they had the anniversary a few years ago at the library and they counted down that 3 minutes and 50 seconds, boy. Just thankful that our family was fine, the church, our home was fine, you know, but it was a life-changing experience for all of us Alaskans back then. The church grew. A lot of good things happened at Abbe Loop over the years. It kept on growing. kind of unexpectedly, accidentally almost. My father said, I just kept saying yes. He was great about that. We did a 2-year Bible school that taught over 4,500 people. That's still amazing to me. We have files on every single one. I'm one of them. We started a bunch of churches in Alaska and around the U.S. That was another miraculous, unexpected thing we were all part of. I was a team member that started the church when I was a young guy in Washington State. That's a congregational picture there. Lots of great things happened over the years. Yeah, I worked there for 30 years. That was a great experience too. There's my wife. She's not an Alaskan, but I guess she is now because she married me and came here in 1978. So 40 years this summer for us. 40 years being an Alaskan, that counts, I guess, doesn't it? Sure, that's long enough. She's been great. She's awesome. And yeah, we adopted our 2 sons when they were little babies. There's a 4-generation picture. My dad, me, our 2 sons, Michael and David, and then little Tucker, who's now in 1st grade. So my story covers 5 generations of my family in Alaska, from my grandparents to me and my little grandson. By the way, he knows my dad. My dad's still living. My mom passed away a couple years ago. Dad's going to be 93 soon. Lives in the same house right behind Abbott Loop Church. Uses a wheelchair all the time, 100% mentally. And my grandson gets to know his great-grandpa. Not many people do. It's a great privilege, and it's a blessing to observe. He goes over and has breakfast with great-grandpa once in a while. And so my Alaskan story goes on, and my family, and who knows what the future holds. I still feel like Anchorage is a small town. I know it got bigger, and people complain about Anchorage and call it Los Anchorage and all of that. But I still see people I know everywhere I go, every day, even here tonight. And it's a blessing, really. It feels like a small town to me still. I'm still amazed every time I see a moose walking around in Anchorage. How many thousand mooses have I seen in my life? And I still want to stop and just kind of be in awe and think, only in Alaska, only in Anchorage. I still like looking up and seeing the Chugach Mountains. You can always tell where you are, just look up and see them. It reminds me of the psalm, I look up to the hills where my help comes from. Just all you have to do is look up, always there. So I'm thankful for my life in Alaska, my family, and what's happened for us, and thankful for tonight, and thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick, and also for your commitment to this community and all that you're doing at Hope. Thank you. Okay. Willie Hensley is a statesman. He is a politician, a public policy maker, a leader in the public and private sectors, and devoted his lifelong attention to Alaska Native affairs. Lots of accomplishments. He graduated from George Washington University in Washington, D.C. with a bachelor's degree in political science and a minor in economics. He held many leadership roles during his career. He represented federal government relations in Washington, D.C. for 10 years for Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. He also served as Commissioner of Commerce and Economic Development for the state of Alaska, and he served on the Oil and Gas Policy Council. He served on the board of directors of the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation, the Alaska Railroad Corporation, the Alaska Industrial Development Authority. He served for 10 years in the Alaska Legislature, 4 years in the House, and 6 years in the Senate. He is a founder of NANA Regional Corporation, where he was director for 20 years and served as president. While at NANA, he directed his involvement in the oil field services area, and most specifically in environmental services and drilling ventures. He was active in the development of the world's largest lead and zinc mine, Red Dog Mine. And Mr. Hensley is one of the founders of the Alaska Federation of Natives, and was formerly was their executive director, president, and co-chairman. He currently serves as chair on the board of trustees for the First Alaskans Institute, and is vice president or vice chair of the board of trustees of Charter College. Mr. Henley is also a notable author, and we're taking book orders tonight for 50 Miles from Tomorrow, a memoir of Alaska and the real people. And he teaches at the University of Alaska Anchorage as a distinguished visiting professor in the College of Business and Public Policy. Will you please join me in welcoming our friend to the podium, Louis Hensley.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Judy and Becky for inviting us to speak tonight. Seemed like I was here a few years ago. I think Arla Sturgielewski was one I remember who presented. And I'm sure you forgot everything I said, so I'm going to repeat it. I'd like to introduce my brother, Jim LaBelle, and his wife, Susan, who are sitting here. I was just telling people, Jim has a different last name than I do, and he likes it that way. Long story. It's hard to know where to begin, but I got the impression that you wanted something about my early life. And the reality is that I think my editor would have loved if I had just stopped when I was at age 15, you know, when I was writing the memoir. And but I said no. You know, politics was a part of my life. Business has been a part of my life, and you know, it has to be in there. It shaped who I am. In any case, I would like to start off with letting you know what my traditional name is. It's Iraruk. In our language, Irik is a mountain, Iraruk is a small mountain, but I was named for my grandfather, whom you'll see in a little bit. And you're fortunate that we're not changing the name of my hometown. Kotzebue, you know, it's the name of a German who came there just over 100 years ago on a round-the-world visit for the Russians, you know, Otto von Kotzebue. He gave the Kotzebue sound its name and left, you know, Kotzebue there. Now, the real name is Kikiktaruk. You have to close your throat and kind of kick some air out. Kikiktaruk. In our language, Kikiktak or Kiktak is an island. If anybody's from Kodiak, when Shelikov came there to take control in 1784, he wrote about fighting with the people of Kiktak, which is an island, the island people. So no matter where you go in the Inuit world, which goes actually all the way from Kodiak up the western coast, if you say Kiktak or Kikiktak, even in Yupik world, all the way up to Utqeervik. You remember that place, right? Barrow. I mean, and you go over to the Mackenzie Delta, over to Hudson's Bay, parts of Quebec, parts of Labrador, all the way to Greenland. If you say Kiktak or Kikiktak, they will understand you. It's essentially a single culture, which is not really an impression that we get much here in Alaska. But I put this map up here because, you know, we're sort of accustomed to seeing Alaska spread out on the United States, but we don't often see it spread out over Europe. And oddly enough, you know, it looks like the tip of the Aleutians is over by Portugal, you know, southeast Alaska down by Turkey, you know, and Utqeervik is up there, you know, by the North Sea, you know. So Alaska is humongous, as we all know, and but it's an image that you don't get to see very often. Okay, you can move it now. Mm-hmm. What's that? Oh, there is one. Oh, I see. Oh, sorry. Nobody told me about all this stuff. How do I click? Which one? Oh, right here? Oh, right there it is. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. Well, you're familiar with this map, and it's just our map. You know, your map has Juneau, Ketchikan, Nome, Anchorage. Our map has the languages. And it's a little complicated. It looks like, but really it's just primarily the Athabascans in the interior with their sub languages. And as you can see, the blue lines here linguistically as you can see that map up there, there's a lot of the Sukpiak language that is comprehensible to me, but as you can see, as I said, all the way over to Greenland, you could understand people. And I like to say if we had 200 more years, we could have founded Europe. Okay. How come I don't know how to move this thing? Oh, on the top. Oh, there. Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
One more. There you
Okay.
go. So if you just tap on here.
Oh, just tap it. Okay. Okay. Well, you're really looking at a near miracle in the sense that there's almost nobody left around in the space we live in up here that can say that they actually was raised sitting in a sod home. I lived in 3 of them as a young boy. Having been born in Qeqertarug. Back then, we were trying to modernize, I guess, with the encouragement of the missionaries who showed up in 1897 and the teachers. But everything came from Seattle on a ship, right? Once a year on the North Star, a government ship. So the building materials were like today, very expensive. And really people didn't have much of an economy back then to be able to afford to buy enough materials to build a substantial house that had, insulation, that had more than a single pane of window. But we had a house, basically a tar paper shack in Kotzebue, and it was small. And it really was completely inadequate. Back then, the notion of having a warm house in the morning when you woke up was just unheard of. Everything was generally frozen when we woke up. And we slept mostly on the floor. There was a bed or two. But for us, it made our family, it made more sense to live out in the country, 10 or 12 miles. This is the dog team era. The notion of snow machines wasn't even a figment of anybody's imagination at that point when I was a kid in the 40s. And so in Kotzebue, in Qeqertarug, there's no trees. There are no alders. You had to scramble for the driftwood with everybody else, And so if you were fortunate enough to have a job of some sort, which there were a few of, you could buy coal or stove oil. But we didn't have anybody with any modernistic skills. Our job was hunting, fishing, and trapping, which is what it's been for thousands of years. And so for us, it made more sense to live out in the country, so that's what we did. The sod houses could be built in a couple of weeks rather. The first one got washed away in a flood. We had to move to high ground. The family built another sod house up the Lil Noatak, and in the tree zone, and then later on we built a raft, floated it down, and built another third house. I'll show you it on that little knoll where we escaped the flood. And our life revolved around hunting and fishing and trapping. Fur in those days was our sort of a ready cash, so to speak, with the trading posts. And we traveled by dog team. Dogs were very important, and part of your reputation really depended on how good your dogs were, how good your leader was, because you had to depend on them to take care of you. When it was stormy or when the ice was thin, they really were important. We'd only go to Kotzebue for celebrations like Christmas and Thanksgiving. In fact, the idea of having an event like that at home never even crossed our mind, because everything happened at the church. And basically the Quakers came to Kotzebue in 1897 from Richard Nixon's hometown in Whittier, California in 1897. And began to, convert us to Christianity. And So we'd gather in this pretty humongous building and celebrate, Christmas. Everybody brought gifts to the church, and there would be literally a mountain of gifts up there by the tree, and they'd have a big Christmas dinner and distribute the gifts. And Thanksgiving was also a big celebration. Of course, we were by then we had developed enough nerve to start dancing again. The missionaries thought it was sinful, and people stopped for about 40 years. But dancing and drumming and singing was an expression of your spirit and stories. So it's something that's not easy to wipe out. Thank goodness it wasn't. In any case, that was my early life. I was learning to be a hunter, and anyway. This building you see here was one that was built in 1906. And at that point, Kotzebue maybe didn't have 35 or 40 people. But you can see that the entire region showed up for this dedication of this building, because to us, I guess it was a symbol of the new way, maybe, the new technology that the non-natives were bringing. People were interested in the education. And the new ideas that they were bringing. So that's the same building I went to school in the 1940s. Of course, there was no running water. The outhouse was behind the building, and when it was stormy, man, you had to fight your way to the bathroom. We didn't even know the word gymnasium. We had our own games. We didn't have anything like school lunches. After recess, they'd serve a little bit of canned orange juice that was probably 8 or 9 months old, or tomato juice, and a malted milk tablet or a vitamin, and 2 squares of saltines. That was our food from school. They wouldn't let us take anything home, no books. Nope, I don't remember bringing a single piece of paper home. I guess they thought we'd use it to start the fire, probably. Anyway, that building is, of course, no longer there, but that's where I went to grade school. And back then, of course, if you finished the 8th grade, that was pretty damn good, because you could read and write and add and subtract, and what more did you need? Because you needed to learn to survive out there. And there weren't that many jobs around. In any case, when I was writing 50 Miles from Tomorrow, I had almost no pictures because we were poor. We didn't have money to spend on cameras, and you had to ship the film out somewhere, like to Nome or Seattle or Fairbanks, to get it developed. So I had to scrounge for photographs. But I heard about an auction that was taking place in Indiana, Americana, and one bundle was photographs or letters from Eskimos in Kotzebue, Alaska, 1915 to 1918. And so I scrambled to find out it had gotten bought, right, by somebody. And so I finally found the guy in La Jolla, California, and it cost me $2,000 to get letters, because our grandfather had written half a dozen of them, and I didn't even know what he looked like. All I knew was that I had his name. And anyway, so this bundle of letters included 2 photographs. This is one of them, and this is him right here. And he was learning a foreign language, basically, and he was learning a new skill, because by then the federal government, Sheldon Jackson, and Captain Healy of the Bear had decided to, and convinced the U.S. government to buy reindeer from the Siberians, because they had a huge domesticated reindeer enterprise that kept them going. And so they brought some reindeer, and my grandfather was learning to become a reindeer herder, and they brought the Lapps over from Scandinavia to teach our people. So that's why how come they have the lariats there. We're not ordinarily cowboys up there. But it was quite a pleasure to read those letters. It sort of brought to life what was going on back at the turn of the century, about 100 years ago. Oh. And this is my father and my mother. They adopted me and my sister. And I never knew the extent to which they impacted, my perspective and my values, and shaped my life. It's just something that you absorb from. And they were people who came from a different generation, from the turn of the century. And that's my brother Jim's name for him. He unfortunately died when I was like 5 or 6 from botulism poisoning. He was a wonderful hunter. He had a great sense of humor. He had these beautiful teeth. He loved to smile. And Priscilla raised me. I owe her really my life, I think. And she was generous enough to let me leave Kotzebue to go to boarding school. In retrospect, I never thought about it much then, but I was really just getting to the point where I could be of some help, in helping the family and helping her to survive in the Arctic. And but she did let me go to learn your way, and it was a sacrifice, for as I look back at it, for her to do that. Okay. This is an ordinary scene when I was a boy in the springtime. Kotzebue is a wonderful place because it had about a 3-mile beach, beautiful rocks and sand, and it was a beehive of activity. There were fewer mosquitoes down there where the breezes were. People would put up their fish racks, meat racks, and dry their fish and meat there because of the breezes. So beluga was a staple in the spring. And of course in the Arctic, you absolutely had to have the energy from the oil. The whale oil, the walrus oil, the seal oil. Uchruk, we call it, or misiruk. Some foods you can eat and still starve because it doesn't have enough fat in it, like caribou, right? There's no fat in the meat itself. Right, and so mammals were an absolutely key part of our diet. I mean, we lived on seals and belugas, and Kotzebue is too shallow for bowheads, but they are belugas and walrus if you go out far enough. And we had a run of salmon. We had all kinds of variety of fish, and so it was a great place to survive from a subsistence standpoint. This is an interesting photograph. There's a lot here for you old-timers. If you heard the name Ferguson or the name Rotman, they were traders. Louis was from Poland, came there maybe to escape the Tsar's conscription in the King's army. And they were, fur was a big business back then, and this is Louis Rotman was John Baker's grandfather, the musher. They left a big family up there, but Louis had a store just behind here. The other one is the new one is here over this way, but Archie Ferguson, who was the uncle of Senator Frank Ferguson. Literally owned. I think he was from Kansas. He could hardly read or write, but he became, he owned everything. He owned the flying service. He owned the restaurant and hotel there. He owned Ferguson Trading, which is right there. This is his storage building here. He had the theater just across there. I think he had tug and barge outfit. I mean, but he didn't pay his taxes. And eventually Uncle Sam got it all. But this building here, another old-timer, you're probably too young to, even the eldest of you probably don't remember, Bess Cross. John Cross was a relatively famous bush pilot up north, and his second wife was a white Bess. Bess was, I think, the first woman legislator who won her seat by a coin toss. She was wealthy for her day. She had been married to a fur trader earlier, and her husband died, and so she became half owner of the fur business that was in Northwest Alaska. She loved politics. She loved fashion. She loved to party and gamble, you know. And I asked Neva Egan once about her. She said, "Oh yeah," she said, we knew, you know, Bess, because back then we didn't have any money, and so us legislative wives would always go to the gallery in the house just to see what kind of hat she had on." Apparently, but from a subsistence standpoint, what you see here is absolutely critical. I was telling you about the necessity for fat, right, and oil, and so these you can't see them very well here, but these are before we had easy access to wooden barrels. Our women would turn the seal skin itself into a airtight container, you know. And in it would be oil and blubber and dried seal meat and dried beluga meat and dried fish, and there'd be roots and there'd be greens. I mean, you could survive on that. I mean, I'm beginning to slather just thinking about all that, all that wonderful food I used to have. Oh, still do, actually. But the guys are weighing these porcs en porcs, to sell, because the trader wants to trade them with people up in the interior of our region who weren't hunters of sea mammal hunters, and also all the way up into the interior to the Athabascan world. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is just a photograph I recently found. A friend found for me. That's me right there. That's my mom right there, and some couple of friends. But as the Reverend was talking, it was wonderful growing up north, because it was there's never a dull moment. I mean, if you had your health, of course, we didn't have any health care. My teeth were falling out, and you know, a lot of diseases were killing us, TB and chicken pox and all these other diseases. But if you had your health, it was a wonderful life, because you're doing something exciting all the time. You know, you're dog teaming, you're boating, you're hunting, you're doing all kinds of stuff. Well, this is a picture somebody else found. Actually, this picture was found in Florida, for God's sake. Yeah, a friend of mine found this in a batch of stuff that somebody had, a school teacher actually, had lugged around the country, and somehow it ended up in Florida, and probably was about to get junked or something. But anyway, that's a picture of me. Apparently we were making a movie or something at the school. I hardly remember that. But anyway, that's the way we dressed. I also found some pictures to use in the book, and lo and behold, we found them in the Gene Autry Museum in LA. And when I was a little boy, this white-haired lady, it turns out her name was Gladys Knight Harris, and she had white hair, would walk along the beach just snapping away, and we used to wonder, what is wrong with these people? You know, they act like we're some aliens or something. But well, what we didn't know was that to us this was ordinary life, right? I mean, the belugas, but to somebody else it was like an alien world, right? It was just something fascinating. But in reality, she was making a chronicle of life at the time of our family and friends, which really was a great service. This is myself right there. You got an ulu, I'm cutting. The earlier picture had the muktuk that was hanging, and then we put it in a vat and we cook it before we put it into the pok, you know, the container. And this is a Arnasalluka dog that just had some puppies that's hungry, so we always, there's our tar paper shack there, and there's a tent right there, and we always move into tents in the summertime because, for one thing, sod houses are damp in the summer, you know, so, and we like to listen to the birds and the waves and stuff, you know. And there's some ice lens on this gravel spit, so we had what we call a sirljok, which is basically an underground storage in the ice, you know, for refrigeration. That's always an issue, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a more modern picture when we were living up there in the late 80s when Abbe and I moved up there. And this is our son Umivik, or James, and Segulik, our daughter. He's an engineer now, electrical, and then she's a lawyer. But this is right in front of Ikkatuk, right in front of that little place where we had the sod house there. Ikkatuk means it's shallow, and it's very shallow. You could walk in your boots, 100 yards out. But there's a creek there called Ikatura Creek, and it was full of whitefish in the fall. I mean, we'd get a lot of, we'd put gunny sacks full of whitefish away. Actually, we just let them sit there and age. Because, when you live on traditional foods, sometimes fresh is the worst. I mean, you want something with a little punch to it, right? So you let it age. That means you let it rot a little, right? Some of you from Europe probably remember that, but you age the fish or the foods for taste, right? And what do we call it in Inupiaq? Anyway, it has a significance of being fairly powerful, but we just take an axe and tear right into the gunny sack, and of course those whitefish would be laden with eggs, and we'd eat it frozen, uncooked. We call it kwak. We eat certain meats like caribou, frozen, uncooked. It's very tasty. Try it. Or many different kinds of fish. Not salmon, sheefish, whitefish, Arctic char, trout. We eat frozen. Tomcod, dip it in seal. You got to dip it in seal oil. You have to dip it in seal. Anyway. Okay. Well, this is the picture of Segulik, Elizabeth, in front of the last sod house that we had at Ikatuk. I remember it quite well. I helped build it, actually. No mortgage, of course. Just earth and a few pieces of timber. We didn't even have a real glass. We used traditional translucent beluga gut skin to let the light in. We had no furniture. We had not a bed, not a set of drawers, not a table, not a chair. But it was a wonderful home. We'd put willows on the floor, and our caribou skins on that, and then our bedding, right? Warm as toast, warmer than that tar paper shack. Oh, in that entryway there, I was a wood chopper, naturally. I mean, you had to start doing your share early. And when we were moving in there, somebody had found this nice plank, a nice long plank, and put it near there, and I thought it was supposed to be for kindling, so I chopped it up, not knowing that it was supposed to be our door. And so we didn't have a door. All winter long, we just had a piece of canvas with a piece of wood on the bottom. Absolute truth. I tell you no lie. Well, here we are many years later, and I met Abbe in Juneau. She was working for my friend, another senator from the Bethel area. And we kind of, I don't know what it was. I don't know if she chose me or if I chose her, or if he just liked my jokes or what. But I decided to, I had no parents left, so I decided to take her up 30 miles out of Kotzebue to Ivik. Ivik means grass, which is where my sister Annie Schaefer lived. And so we went up there, and basically I guess my thought was to make sure that my sister approved, and I don't know if you talked to her or what, but she said we didn't need to talk. Well, anyway, so we've been together ever since, 40 some odd years now. 40 some odd years. 46. And this story, Abbe mentioned what her auntie's reaction was when she told Aunt Erm that we were going to get married, and her reaction was, "Oh, Abbe," and I always thought, was it because I was a native? Was it because I was a Democrat? Was it because I was divorced? Or was it because I was unemployed? All true. But needless to say, right off the bat, I was elected the same year that Uncle Wally was elected. He wasn't Uncle Wally then. He was public enemy number one to me. Because basically he was saying that we own Alaska, and I said, no, you don't, we do. And of course, that turned into a gigantic battle that took 5 years to resolve. I always felt a little strange going over to Uncle Wally and Aunt Erm's during Christmas celebration because, you know, we were battling tooth and tongue for a while he was governor. Of course, then he went off to Washington. But the reality is it worked out, right? I mean, Alaska was big enough that there was enough land for everybody. But unfortunately, we let Uncle Sam take most of it. Yeah. And the other thing is they had found the oil. So oil greases a lot of fingers. I mean, there was enough money there to resolve the problem, actually. And so it worked out. But it was tough sailing there for a while until we figured a way forward together. And I like this picture because we did battle so hard, and we did everything we could to make sure he didn't get his appointment as secretary without a commitment to keep that land freeze till we gave Congress a chance to pass a bill, and that happened. And so here we are, living happy ever after. Thank you.
Willie, I could just listen to you all night. I actually worked with Willie at Alaska Pipeline, and sometimes he would come into my office between breaks when we were meeting, and he'd say, "Can I read you part of this chapter?" Because we didn't have enough time for the whole thing. And what do you think? What do I think? Willie Hensley and your stories. I mean, if you like his stories tonight, you want 50 miles from tomorrow. It is rich, and I have a signed copy. Thank you. So the blue sheet back here with Ann, you can sign up if you'd like one. Thank you, Willie, for your courage and your leadership. It's amazing. Well, this concludes our program, and I think Judy's going to come, and we're going to quickly go through door prizes. And don't forget, we have the quilt. And before we get started, I just want to make sure we say thank you to Judy, and we have some beautiful flowers, and I'm going to leave them wrapped because she's going to have to take them out. But they are roses and lots of beautiful colors. And thank you for making this happen. Without Judy, I'm telling you, this would not happen. Thank you. And I better mention Pete because Pete comes and helps too, but Judy's the leader on this. And I want to thank our staff, Julie and Mary Wolkoff, Julie McFarland, and Stephanie Rose, and Ann, and our musicians tonight. My goodness, what a nice evening, and thank you for coming. Okay, and our servers, and our chefs. Who did I forget? Our gift shop, Nancy Mercer. Okay, who did I? Oh, yes. Okay, we have 2 minutes and we're going to close the silent auction. But in the meantime, Judy's going to take over. Okay.
Okay, I've got a couple of runners here. I think most of you, if you've ever been to the Senior Center, recognize Mary. And we have one of our volunteers' grandsons that's helping us. So I'm going to call a number. And the first gift is a pewter necklace, an Alaskan necklace with a king crab on it, or some kind of crab. Doesn't have long enough legs to be a king crab. I know that much. So 830269. Oh, there we go. Bring it up so I can see it. Okay, we have some playing cards and a magnet, all Alaskan. And I think I'll just read the last three numbers. 281. 281. Is that a yes? We trust you. We trust all of you. All right. The next. Oh, we have a pewter seal and a magnet, Alaskan magnet, 197. 197 right here in front. We have an Alaskan towel with note cards, and we have 309. 309. Hey! I think you have a matching set with your brother. Similar. Okay. We have, I don't know if you've ever seen these things, but you put your plastic bags you get from the grocery stores in here, and then when you need, you just pull one out at a time from the bottom. You hang it on a doorknob or on a hook, and that goes to number 301. 301. There we go, this gentleman right there. Okay, next. We have something special. It can be a spoon holder or a soap dish, and there's a hand crocheted soap or dish rag or a washcloth and some soap from the Denali Soap Company off near West High School. And that goes to 304. 304. Oh, back there. Thank you. All right, something I have to tell you about. We have a collector's item. They don't make these anymore, but they used to make rendezvous plates. And this one is from 1986. 1986 with a beaver on it. We also, for a very inexpensive price, have some for sale in the gift shop. We got them from someone years ago, and we thought this was a good place to give one as a door prize. Oh, number 300. 300. Oh, I see a hand. Okay, this one has a moose keychain, a moose magnet, and gift cards. 215. 215. Right over there. I think that's a lucky table back there. I don't know. All right, we have a couple more books now. We have In the Light of the Night and the Day of the Dark, Tales of Alaskans at Work and Play, compiled by members of the Senior Center. It's $2.96. $2.96. Yes, and get me that book back there. And the other book is a collection of pioneer stories written by local pioneers, people who lived here a long, long time, and members of the Pioneers of Alaska. And this was their first edition. They actually had so many stories, they made 2 editions. Interesting stories. And dig to the bottom. That goes to 244. 244. Oh, I told you that was a lucky table. Look at that. We have 2 Arctic Roadrunner coupon envelopes, both with 2 coupons in them, valued at $18.40. And the first one goes to $2.92. $2.92. I keep looking over at that table. I'm going to look over here. Let me change it. $2.92. Okay, it might have been one that someone didn't show up and we already had torn some tickets. The next one is $2.19. $2.19. Right here, this gentleman. And the next one, the same thing, is $2.84. 284. Oh, no, I tried to look over here. You guys, next time you come, sit at that table back there. Okay, one of the big ones. Which one? It doesn't matter. Okay, we have 3 really special gifts that were donated. The first one is a curling flat iron, or I don't know what you call those. They were donated from Walgreens with a traveling case. Very nice. And I'm going to dig down again, mix them up. And that one goes to 232. 232. Sue Norgard. And then these things are beyond my understanding, but at least I'm ahead of my husband. I do know how to use a computer.
Thank you very much.
He does not like.
From India, I can say I don't have it.
He's not very technology oriented. But this one would take somebody that does. Someone told me at my table they got one, but they hadn't figured out how to hook it up. So that's your challenge. This is a Amazon Alexa, a wireless speaker. A wireless speaker, apparently you can say something to them and they do what you ask them to. I don't know, but they're really neat. Oh, you can tell them what music to play and what to turn down the light. All kinds of stuff. So I'm going to mix these up. This is a real special one. All right, you ready? Do you have 237? 237. I'll look over there. Well, going once, 237. Going, Leon said he'd take it. Sorry, Leon. Okay. Somebody else over there. Abby would take it. How about 223? All right. Hey, we got a winner. Now you got to get someone, a grandson or something, to teach you how to hook it up. Okay? And the last one before we do our drawing for our quilt is a hair dryer and a travel bag from Walgreens. And I'm going to mix this up because I got to get some different numbers here. How about this one? 248. 248. Where are you? 248. Going once. 249. 248. I'm not changing it. Going twice. Oh, it's one we didn't give out. Thank you, Leah. Okay, then this must be a winner. 228. 228. I think someone needs her glasses. She's not sure. Sue doesn't have her glasses either. Somebody that has their glasses, please help them. All right. 228. All right. Now, those that put their name on the back of their food ticket, is there anyone we did not collect? Our runners will come get them. They're going to go in here and be mixed up. Before that, I'm going to ask Mary and Liam to go get the quilt and hold that up so people can see it. Our gift shop donated a quilt made here at the Senior Center. It's valued at least $150. So not only will you hear about Pioneer Stories next year, personally, you're going to have a nice warm quilt to keep you warm this winter. Walk out in front more. Walk out further, Leah. Out in front. It has an Alaskan motif. And the winner is Richard Winklerman. Is it Winklerman? Richard, hey! Yeah. That's to wrap up in, or hang on the wall, or whatever you wish. It's beautiful. So you want to say, do you want to end it, or do you want me to? Oh, you have to do the auction sheets. Okay. Stephanie's collecting the auction sheets, and I don't know what happened. Abby's still around, but we want to really want to thank our speakers tonight. They were excellent. I had to ask Abbe a number of years to get her to come, but she came through, and boy, were we so lucky to have had her tonight. And same with the others, Willie too, and our other two speakers. We thank you, but we are now going to, all right, for the Barbara LaValle Hugs and Kisses, Gretchen Cuddy. Where are you, Gretchen? Stephanie, do they come back and see you? Yeah. Okay. Leanne will bring it to you. None others were bid on? No. Okay.
So, do you want to mention next week's program?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
The others were not bid on, so we have another Pioneer Story a week from now, and I'm sure they will go then. Our speakers are Tim Middleton. He grew up on a homestead in Homer, and he is a lawyer and a marathon runner here in Anchorage. We have John Speaker, who's going to be talking about his harrowing adventures in Alaska. We have our own, Betty Arnett. She's talking about her first job as a mother of 11 little boys at the Jesse Lee home. That should be really interesting. That was back in 1952. And Deborah Faith Rose is going to talk about what it's like to come to Alaska and not understand what people are talking about. What in the heck is a frost heave when you come from Texas? So those should be really interesting. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed yourself, and we hope we see you again in the future. Thank you very much.